The first thing Dr. Vellix noticed when stepping into the emergency bay was the blood. Thick, maroon streaks smeared across the silver floor, trailing toward the oversized examination table. The second thing he noticed was the creature sprawled across that table, an apex predator, by every known classification of the Galactic Index, and it was bleeding heavily from a jagged wound across its side. A beast like that should not be bleeding. It should not be vulnerable. It should not be here. Vellix barely had time to process the situation before the human stormed in behind him, a tattered sleeve pressed against his own side. "Patch him up, Doc," the human said, voice sharp but not panicked. "He's a big softie." The translation device struggled for a moment with the phrase, making Vellix tilt his head in confusion. "Softie?" The human, a rugged man with dust-caked boots and a blood-smeared jawline, dropped his makeshift bandage and staggered against the counter. His name tag half-torn but still legible read Travis Harker. Vellix's tentacles flexed nervously. "You are injured as well." Travis waved him off, grimacing. "Later. He needs it first." Vellix turned his gaze back to the predator. It was massive, nearly 3 meters long, with dense muscle under matted fur. Its rows of sharp teeth were bared in pain, not aggression. Vellix had read about this species called a Vroxxar, but seeing one this close, especially injured, was surreal. "You are certain it is safe to approach?" Vellix asked, prepping a sedative injector. "Safe as kittens," Travis muttered, then winced and clutched his ribs. Vellix hesitated a moment longer, then approached the creature carefully. The Vroxxar lifted its head and growled low, a sound that rattled the metal walls. Travis coughed once, staggered forward, and laid a hand on the beast's massive snout. "Easy, buddy. Doc's gonna help." The Vroxxar huffed, relaxed slightly under Travis's touch. Vellix inserted the injector carefully at the base of the creature's neck. Within seconds, its breathing steadied, the muscles relaxed. The blood kept coming, though, pooling beneath the table. "I must close the wound immediately," Vellix said. "It has severed underlying tissues." "Do it," Travis said, sliding down to sit against the wall. Vellix moved swiftly, using a field cauterizer to stop the worst of the bleeding, then began stitching the torn flesh with swift, precise motions. As he worked, he kept glancing at Travis, who was now pale and sweating but still conscious. "You require medical attention," Vellix said without looking up. "Fix him first," Travis rasped. Vellix finished the last stitch, applied a regenerant spray, and finally stepped back. "The creature will survive," he said. "Now your turn." Travis tried to push himself up, failed, and let out a grunt of frustration. Vellix moved to scan him with a portable med unit. The results came back in flashing red: 2 cracked ribs, a deep laceration on his side, and signs of internal bruising. "You are fortunate," Vellix said. "No bone fractures, but your injuries are severe." "Fortunate, huh?" Travis muttered, slumping as Vellix applied a coagulant to his wound. As Vellix worked, he couldn't help but study the human. There was no fear in him, no hesitation. He had prioritized the Vroxxar over himself, an act Vellix found baffling. "You risked your life for a predator," Vellix said quietly. Travis gave a weak chuckle. "He's not a predator to me. He's family." Vellix stitched the wound closed, his mind racing. The medical reports on humans had mentioned loyalty, but seeing it firsthand was something else entirely. Once Travis was stabilized, Vellix called for an orderly to bring a hover stretcher. The human waved off assistance, but Vellix insisted, helping him onto the stretcher himself. As they wheeled Travis and the Vroxxar to a recovery bay, Vellix asked, "What happened?" "Patrol gone wrong," Travis said through gritted teeth. "Pirates set a trap. We walked right into it. He took most of the hits for me." Vellix stared at the Vroxxar, who was now breathing evenly. "He protected you." Travis nodded. "Wouldn't be here without him." Vellix found himself at a loss for words. He had seen alliances between species before, but this bond felt different, deeper. In the recovery bay, Vellix set up monitoring machines for both patients. Travis lay back with a sigh, his shirt stripped away to reveal a network of bruises already coloring his ribs. The Vroxxar stirred faintly but remained sedated. "Name's Brutus," Travis said, nodding toward the creature. Brutus, Vellix repeated, testing the unfamiliar syllables. Yeah. Big baby, Travis said, a tired smile tugging at his lips. Vellix almost couldn't believe it. This creature, capable of tearing armored vehicles apart, was a big baby to this human. You will require bed rest, Vellix said. At least 2 weeks. No strenuous activity. Got it, Travis nodded. But I'm not leaving him. You will not be strong enough to care for yourself, let alone not leaving him, Travis repeated firmly. Vellix saw there was no use arguing. He adjusted the hover bed to position Travis closer to Brutus's platform. Later that cycle, as Vellix updated the medical logs, another alien entered the bay, a tall, green-skinned Sorn medic named Caliph. He peered at the human and the Vroxxar, his 4 eyes narrowing. You treated both? Yes, Vellix said. And the human insisted on treating the beast first? Indeed. Caliph muttered something in his native language that the translator refused to convey. I do not understand these creatures, Caliph said. They are illogical. Vellix watched as Travis, half-conscious, reached out and brushed his fingers against Brutus's thick paw. Perhaps, Vellix said, it is not logic that drives them. For the next few days, Travis remained under observation. His injuries worsened before they improved, swelling, deep bruising, painful breathing, but he never once complained about himself. His concerns stayed fixed on Brutus. When Brutus finally woke, the entire medical wing held its breath. The Vroxxar lifted his massive head, sniffed the air, and let out a low rumble. Travis, even with his chest still wrapped in tight bandages, pushed himself upright with a groan. Hey, big guy, he croaked. Brutus whined, a shockingly pitiful sound for such a monstrous creature, and nudged Travis gently with his huge muzzle. The monitors beeped frantically as Travis leaned forward, ignoring the pain. Easy, he said, patting Brutus's snout. Doc fixed you up good. Vellix stood at the edge of the room, unsure whether to intervene or allow the moment. In the end, he said nothing. Over the next week, Travis's condition stabilized. He regained strength slowly, though he followed Vellix's instructions with surprising diligence. No overexertion, regular nutrition, daily checks. Brutus, too, improved. The deep wound knitted closed under the influence of the regenerant spray, and the creature even began to eat again, enormous, messy meals that required constant cleaning. You owe me a mop, Vellix told Travis one afternoon, dryly. Travis chuckled, then winced and held his ribs. Put it on my tab. Vellix found himself smiling more often around the human, despite his initial reservations. One evening, as Vellix was logging the day's reports, he heard a crash from the recovery bay. He rushed in to find Brutus tangled in the hover platform's restraints, letting out anxious growls. Travis was trying to calm him, but he was too weak to get out of bed. Vellix acted without thinking. He approached carefully, speaking in low tones. Brutus's massive golden eyes locked onto his, wild with fear. Easy, Vellix said, mimicking Travis's tone. You are safe. He reached out slowly and released the restraint. Brutus immediately pulled free. Then, to Vellix's astonishment, curled up on the floor beside Travis's bed, resting his enormous head against the human's mattress. Travis let out a relieved breath. Thanks, Doc, he said hoarsely. Vellix nodded, heart pounding. After that, Vellix noticed something strange. The Vroxxar began to trust him. Tentative at first, a twitch of the nose, a shift of the body, but trust nonetheless. On the 10th day, Vellix entered to find Travis sitting up fully, a tablet in his lap, Brutus snoring beside him. Discharge papers? Travis asked with a grin. You are improving, Vellix said, but not ready for full release. Travis sighed. Figured. You may, however, begin light walking exercises. Travis grinned wider. Hear that, Brutus? We're moving up in the world. Brutus thumped his tail once against the floor, cracking a tile. Vellix rubbed his forehead. I will add facility repairs to your tab. Travis laughed, then grimaced and clutched his ribs. Slowly, Vellix warned. Yeah, Travis said, easing back. As Vellix recorded his observations, he thought about how much he had learned from this human. Adaptability, loyalty, resilience, concepts that could not be quantified on any galactic report. And somehow, impossibly, it all started with a bleeding predator and a human who called him a big softie. 3 days after Brutus's first steps around the recovery bay, the medical wing smelled unmistakably of wet fur, antiseptic, and the faint metallic tang of soldered floor tiles. Vellix stood beside a cumbersome diagnostic unit, flipping through data readouts while glancing at Travis, who was stubbornly trying to balance on his own without assistance. "You will cause additional strain on your intercostal muscles," Vellix said, not looking up from the scanner. "Gotta loosen up sometime," Travis muttered, wobbling slightly before catching the edge of Brutus's platform. Brutus, drowsing contentedly, cracked one amber eye open and gave a low, questioning woof. "See? Even he thinks I'm fine," Travis said, reaching out to scratch behind Brutus's ear, an action the creature tolerated with something approaching regal boredom. Vellix made a noise somewhere between a sigh and a chitter. "The creature's opinion is not diagnostic criteria." Across the bay, Caliph was assembling a new restraint system more flexible, less prone to catastrophic failure. He worked methodically, glancing over occasionally with the air of someone observing an unstable chemical reaction. "Your regenerative progress is atypical for your species," Vellix said, tapping a note into his pad. "Suggestive of elevated baseline resilience. Comes with the territory," Travis said, easing himself down onto a bench with a wince. "You don't last long out in the border sectors if you break easy." Vellix paused, considering. "You have experienced comparable injuries before?" "Worse," Travis said. "Got thrown off a cliff once. Broke my leg in 3 places. Had to splint it with a rifle barrel and crawl 6 miles back to base." Caliph's tool slipped from his hand, clattering loudly onto the floor. He retrieved it without comment, but his antennae stood stock straight. "You endured such trauma without immediate medical intervention?" Vellix asked, genuinely incredulous. "Didn't have much choice. Pirates don't tend to wait around for medevac. And you survived." "Functional. Mostly functional," Travis said, rolling his shoulder with a grimace. Brutus let out a low snore, vibrating the floor panels gently. Caliph approached then, wiping his hands on a cloth. "We have completed the modifications to the restraint system. It will allow controlled movement without full immobilization." "Good," Travis said. "He hates being tied down." Caliph studied Brutus, his expression unreadable. "It is remarkable. No sedation required for compliance. Only companionship." "He's smarter than most people think," Travis said, reaching out to pat Brutus again. "Understands about 50 spoken commands. Probably more if I'm being honest." Vellix exchanged a glance with Caliph. The data on Vroxxar intelligence was sparse, mostly because no one had ever survived long enough to study them properly. "You domesticated a Vroxxar," Caliph said, voice tinged with something halfway between horror and admiration. "Domesticated's a strong word," Travis said. "We're partners. He chose to stick with me." Vellix filed that away silently. "Partnership, not ownership." Another subtle but profound distinction. A chime sounded from the diagnostic unit. Vellix frowned, reading the results. "There are anomalies in your blood chemistry," he said. "Elevated cortisol analogs. Trace nanite degradation products." "Yeah, had a medpack injection about a week before the patrol ambush," Travis said. "Old model. Probably broke down by now." "That would explain the irregularities," Vellix said, noting it. "No immediate concern, but continued monitoring is advisable." "Noted, Doc," Travis said, leaning back carefully. A medic drone hummed by, carrying a tray of nutrient supplements. Brutus opened one eye again, then closed it when he saw it wasn't food for him. Caliph folded his arms. "Why risk yourself for a non-sapient creature?" Travis tilted his head. "Why do you help injured animals?" Caliph blinked all 4 eyes. "Because it is the ethical obligation of a healer." "Same reason," Travis said simply. Vellix watched Caliph process that, his mandibles twitching slightly. It was nearing the end of the cycle when Vellix checked Travis's vitals again. Respiration. Improved. Blood oxygenation. Nearing optimal. Pain responses. Still elevated but manageable. "You are cleared for limited external activity," Vellix said. Travis's grin was slow and genuine. Finally. But under supervision, Vellix added sharply. And no exertion exceeding minimal parameters. No lifting, no running, no physical altercations. Yeah, Travis said, levering himself upright with a grunt. Brutus, sensing movement, rose too, his bulk shifting with surprising grace. Vellix activated the restraint system remotely. Light bands of energy formed around Brutus's limbs and torso, not restrictive, but enough to prevent a sudden charge. The group made their way slowly toward the external gardens, a simulated environment of flora from various worlds. Travis leaned heavily on a support frame, but his eyes lit up as they stepped into the pseudo-sunlight. Better than staring at bulkheads all day, he said. Brutus sniffed the air, then sneezed explosively, sending a nearby flock of avian analogues scattering. A maintenance bot trundled by, flashing an alert that translated roughly to contamination detected. Caliph muttered something under his breath, but Travis laughed, a rough, genuine sound. They settled near a low bench. Brutus collapsed onto the synthetic grass with a heavy thud, exhaling loudly. Vellix perched nearby, recalibrating his scanner. You are unusually tolerant of discomfort, he said after a moment. Grew up in a mining colony, Travis said, watching Brutus chew absent-mindedly on a fallen branch. Comfort wasn't really on the menu. Vellix tilted his head. Your species' capacity for environmental adaptation is extraordinary. We're stubborn, mostly, Travis said. You throw us into a bad situation, we don't curl up and die. We build something. Or break something. Or both. How did you bond with Brutus? Vellix asked. Travis chuckled. First time I met him, he tried to bite my head off. Took 3 tranquilizer darts to slow him down. Even sedated, he fought like hell. I respected that. And he respected you? Eventually, Travis said. Took a while. Lot of patience. Lot of meat. Vellix filed that away too. Not dominance. Not submission. Mutual recognition. Brutus sneezed again, this time sending a cloud of pollen swirling. Maybe not the best idea bringing him into a garden, Travis said, coughing. You require allergen filtration? Vellix asked. Nah, just a little dust. Brutus, though. Before he could finish, Brutus rolled onto his back, legs in the air, and began scratching energetically against the ground, dismantling several carefully maintained flower beds. Caliph's antennae drooped in dismay. Vellix sighed and tapped his pad to summon a maintenance crew. I will note this incident as environmental enrichment exercise, he said dryly. Travis grinned and leaned back, soaking up the artificial sun. They stayed there until the light cycle dimmed to simulate dusk. A medic drone buzzed by, offering hydration packs. Travis accepted one, tossing another to Brutus, who crunched it like a toy. Bet you didn't think you'd be babysitting a couple of idiots when you signed up for medical duty, Travis said. Vellix considered. I anticipated many scenarios. This was not among them. Travis laughed again, but softer this time. As they made their way slowly back toward the recovery wing, Brutus lumbering along happily at his side, Travis glanced at Vellix. You ever think you know how things work, he said, then meet something that rewrites the rules? Vellix looked at the human, battered but unbroken, and the apex predator trailing after him like a loyal pup. Yes, he said quietly. I believe I have. The next morning, Vellix found Travis already awake, wrestling with the stubborn fastenings on his medical brace. Brutus lay sprawled nearby, chewing on what looked like a reinforced ventilation duct with lazy satisfaction. You were not cleared to remove that, Vellix said, setting down a tray of monitoring equipment. Travis gave the brace a final tug before grunting in defeat. It's itching like crazy. Means it's healing, right? Itching is a common symptom of dermal regeneration, Vellix said, scanning him with a portable monitor. Nevertheless, the brace stabilizes your rib structure. Removing it prematurely would risk re-injury. Travis leaned back against the bed frame, muttering something under his breath. Brutus snorted loudly, as if agreeing. Tell you what, Travis said, shifting to get comfortable. You ever had to wear one of these? They're torture devices. I do not possess ribs, Vellix said. Or a skeletal frame, for that matter. Lucky you, Travis said, eyeing the scanner. Any good news? Your internal bruising has decreased by 19% since the last cycle, Vellix said. You may be permitted brief, unsupported movement within the facility by mid-cycle. Guess that's something, Travis said. If I don't go crazy from boredom first. Vellix adjusted the settings on the monitoring unit. Mental stimulation can accelerate recovery. Would you prefer access to educational materials? Depends, Travis said. You got anything on interspecies tracking techniques? Or survival training manuals? Vellix paused. You wish to study survival strategies while confined to a medical bed? Gotta keep sharp, Travis said. Out there, you fall behind, you don't get a second chance. Brutus shifted, resting his massive head against the side of the bed with a low rumble. I will requisition appropriate materials, Vellix said. But you must balance cognitive exertion with rest. Deal, Travis said, offering a two-fingered salute. Hours later, after Travis had buried himself in a holographic manual on desert planet survival, Vellix was summoned to the administrative wing for an unexpected meeting. When he returned, he found Caliph waiting beside Travis's bed, arms folded, antennae angled stiffly forward. Doc's back, Travis said without looking up from his holographic display. You miss me. Security Council convened an emergency session, Vellix said, setting down a small stack of data slates. Concerning your companion. Travis finally looked up. Brutus? Yes. Debate persists regarding the advisability of permitting a Vroxxar unrestricted access to station resources. He hasn't hurt anybody, Travis said, frowning. That is acknowledged, Vellix said. Nevertheless, some argue that his very presence constitutes a latent threat. Caliph stepped forward, voice low. They propose relocation to an off-world containment facility. Travis's hands curled into fists. Over my dead body. Your objections have been noted, Vellix said. I advocated on your behalf. It was not universally well received. Travis swung his legs off the bed with a grimace. What can I do? You must demonstrate absolute behavioral control over Brutus before the council's final review tomorrow, Vellix said. Caliph added, they will require evidence that the creature responds predictably to your commands. No incidents. Travis glanced at Brutus, who was now gnawing absent-mindedly on the corner of the bed frame. Well, Travis said, we've got work to do. The next hours were a blur of activity. Travis, still stiff and favoring his injured side, ran Brutus through a series of hand signals and spoken commands. Brutus, to everyone's astonishment, responded with near-military obedience. Sit, stay, come, release. At one point, when Brutus hesitated at a drop-it command involving a particularly tasty-looking maintenance bot, Travis dropped to one knee. Brutus, he said, voice low and steady. Let go. Brutus stared at him for a long moment, then opened his jaws and let the bot clatter to the ground, unharmed but dripping with saliva. Vellix, observing from a safe distance, made careful notes. By the time the artificial lights dimmed to simulate station night, Travis was leaning heavily against the wall, exhausted but triumphant. Think that'll be enough? He asked, breathing hard. You have demonstrated consistent behavioral control under supervised conditions, Vellix said. It will bolster your case significantly. Good, Travis said, sliding down to sit on the floor beside Brutus. Because if they try to take him, they're gonna have a bigger problem on their hands. Vellix considered the human, battered but unyielding. Your loyalty is formidable. That's what friends do, Travis said, scratching behind Brutus's ear. In the early morning cycle, Vellix accompanied Travis and Brutus to the council chamber. The room was a sprawling hexagonal space, lined with representatives from dozens of species. Their expressions ranged from wary curiosity to outright hostility. Travis stood as straight as he could, brace hidden under a loose jacket, Brutus sitting calmly at his side. A tall, crystalline being named Prefect Solon addressed them first. Human Travis Harker, we have reviewed your request to retain custody of the Vroxxar specimen. Do you have evidence to support your claim that the creature is non-dangerous under your supervision? Yes, ma'am, Travis said. Brutus isn't a threat unless someone threatens us first. He's trained, he's loyal, and he deserves better than a cage. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Solon raised a translucent hand. Demonstrate. Travis nodded once. Brutus, heel. Brutus moved to Travis's side, muscles rippling but every motion controlled. Brutus, sit. The Vroxxar sat, tail curling neatly around his feet. Brutus, down. Brutus lowered himself to the floor, chin resting on massive paws. The council members consulted among themselves in hushed tones. A thick-bodied Graxian representative leaned forward. Does the creature respond to others? Travis met Vellix's gaze briefly, then nodded. Doc, you want to try? Vellix approached cautiously. Brutus, sit. Brutus remained seated, tail thumping once against the floor. Vellix tried again. Brutus, stand. The creature rose smoothly to his feet. Satisfied, Vellix stepped back. He recognizes familiar authority figures, Travis said. Doesn't mean he'll obey just anyone. More murmurs. A Sorn counselor clicked his mandibles in thought. He exhibits restraint not typical of his species, Solon said. This is unusual. Humans specialize in unusual, Travis said with a tired grin. Caliph, standing near the entrance, actually allowed himself a brief flash of amusement. After an uncomfortable pause, Solon spoke again. The council finds the evidence compelling. Custody of the Vroxxar is granted on a provisional basis, subject to regular evaluations. Travis sagged with relief. Thank you. Failure to maintain control will result in immediate reassessment, Solon added sharply. Understood, Travis said, steady once more. As they exited the chamber, Brutus padding at his side, Travis turned to Vellix. You didn't have to go to bat for us, he said quietly. It was the logical course of action, Vellix said. You saved his life. He saved yours. Symbiosis. Some would just call it friendship, Travis said. Vellix considered that. A rarer phenomenon than most appreciate. They made their way back to the medical wing. Travis eased himself onto the bed with a grunt, already peeling off the hated brace. Permission to finally ditch this thing, Doc? Vellix ran a final scan. Healing tissue, stable structure, minimal residual edema. You are cleared for unassisted mobility, Vellix said. Travis let out a long, heartfelt sigh and tossed the brace onto a nearby chair. Brutus hopped up onto the bed beside him with a heavy thud, eliciting a pained grunt but an unbothered laugh from Travis. Guess that's his way of saying thanks, Travis said. Vellix gathered his equipment. Your recovery is complete. Thanks for fixing us up, Travis said, scratching Brutus's thick neck. Vellix hesitated, then said, should you require assistance in future, my facility remains at your service. Appreciate it, Doc, Travis said. But hopefully next time, we'll come by just to say hello. Brutus gave a soft, rumbling purr that rattled the bed frame. As Vellix retreated to his station, he updated the patient file one last time. Patient discharged. Prognosis excellent. Human adaptability and relational bonding mechanisms extraordinary. Recommended follow-up, none. For once, everything was as it should be.